All right, so the next topic that we're going to talk about are matrices. So this is going to be just an introduction to what they are and how to set them up. So a matrix is a rectangular array of numbers written in brackets. We represent a matrix with a capital letter and we classify it by its dimensions. So dimensions are always going to be the number of rows by the number of columns. Okay. So for our matrix A here, we would have 2 rows and 3 columns. So we would say that this is a 2 by 3 matrix for the dimensions. Okay. Now, understanding how to find the dimensions of a matrix is going to be very important when we start talking about how to add, subtract, and multiply them together. So if we can't identify the dimensions, we won't be able to do any of those other operations. And again, we always use a capital letter to identify a matrix, and we should see these brackets. So if we are seeing these brackets, that should tell you that these numbers are dealing with a matrix. So right now, those numbers don't have any meaning, but usually we use a matrix in relation to an equation. So these numbers will take on meaning as we start getting into problem solving. Now, each of these numbers we call an element. Okay, so an element is each number in the matrix. So a more general matrix would be something like this. So if I have matrix A equals, I would have A11, I could have A12, A13, and we could keep adding to that. So the first one stands for the row that it's in. The second number stands for the column that it's in. So we're not actually reading this as A11. When I see A11, the first number, that's talking about the row. The second number is the column that it's in. Okay. So and again, we can add to this. So I would have A21. So again, second row, first column. A22, A23. And again, we can keep repeating that. And again, my next one, I would have A31, so third row, first column, A32, A33, and again, we can go on forever, and I can keep adding to my rows here. So this is just kind of a general matrix. So each element in this has a specific position. So again, when we're looking at it, this position would be the third row, third column. This one is the third row, second column. First row, third column. So we also want to be able to recognize the position of each element when we are looking at a matrix. Okay. Now again, we're going to be using matrices to solve a system of equations. So when we have a system of equations, we want to be able to write a matrix from it. So most of the time we are going to be writing the coefficient matrix. So remember, a coefficient is a number in front of a variable. So I'm just going to start by writing the coefficient for this matrix. So my first column, we're going to put all of the coefficients of x. So I'm just going to go kind of down my x column and write the numbers. So this one would be -1, 4, and then 1. And then the y coefficients would be -5, -5, and +5. And our z coefficients are -5, 4, and -1. I'm going to put a little bar here to separate this. And then I'm going to write my constants. So 2, 19, and -20. So when I'm looking at this, this is actually called an augmented matrix. Okay. So we have the coefficients on this side, constants on this side. So when we set up a matrix like this, we can actually have our calculator go through the elimination process of solving for us. So we would set up this matrix, and then we can actually type it into our calculator to solve. So this is a really nice thing to use for checking your answers when we are solving a system of equations. So the next one, I'm just going to set that up. Okay. So again, when we write this, we start with our x's. So -5, -3, and -4. And then we have 3, 1, 2, 6, 5, 1. So again, y and z column. And then I'm going to put a little bar here for the constants. So 4, -5, and 13. So again, this would be my augmented matrix for that system of equations. So even continuing to our next set, we can, even though we would have a smaller matrix, same idea. So our x column, y column. So we'd have 4 and -5, and then 1 and -5, and our constants would be -14 and 25. And our last problem, so again, x is first, so 6 and 5, 1, 6. Constants are -2 and +2. So that's just how we would go through and set up each matrix.